Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Inshallah, you guys are doing well. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We are in for a treat today because today we're having Iram bin Safia and I talk about Islamic parenting versus Desi parenting or any cultural parenting. And before I bring her on, I just want to introduce her in case you guys don't know. She's certified as a life coach through the International Coaching Federation, which is a big deal, and working on women empowerment. She's done amazing talks on her Instagram, a lot of book reviews, and she does amazing talks in Urdu. She has been interviewed for many different channels and radio stations, and she has a great YouTube channel as well. And without further ado, let's invite her up. We're going to talk about different aspects of just our cultural upbringing and how it really impacts our parenting, and some of it how it's Islamic and some aren't. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair for such a wonderful introduction. Gala theek hai?
Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm kind of getting over a cold.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's, there's so many different topics. We can talk about this all day long because I think many of us have experienced it.
I want to tell the audience that, those people who always bring something good to your life. Alhamdulillah, Shanila is one of those. She has always brought goodness to me through her thought process, through her ideas. I mean, we are on a very different wavelength as personalities, but I humbly will admit that I love, respect, and honor her thought, way of thinking, and I am grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I got to meet her. And Mazee ki baat, I met her through Instagram. So
yeah, we met through Instagram, and it was we can add so much to other people's lives. And even if we're different in so many ways, there's so many things that we can make an impact on in a positive way. Yeah. And I think after meeting you and telling you that, oh my God, I love your talks in Urdu, do more of them. It has really everything that you say resonates, especially if you're from a Desi background. Yeah. We've experienced that, So I just want to go through a list of them. But first, before we start, I want to acknowledge that just being able to talk about this is a privilege. A lot of our parents, or maybe in the early years, we came here, for example, my parents, they came here, they had to start from zero, and they had to start with knocking on doors or having 3 or 4 jobs. So they were in survival mode, and they didn't have the opportunity that we do, where we're sitting around just thinking about, oh, how can we improve our parenting? They weren't even there. And so it's really a privilege to be able to talk about it. And they did the best that they could with what they knew in their circumstance. And we know better, so we should do better. But there's certain things that kind of stick to us. We don't really want it to, or we know that it's wrong, but we kind of automatically do, or we still hold on to those beliefs that aren't particularly Islamic, but it's just how we grew up. So the first one I want to talk about, Iram, is fear-based. The kids these days, they don't even fear their parents. You heard that?
We wish they would, though. Sometimes I seriously. Yes, they don't. And do you know what? This dramatic change didn't happen it's not very old. Today's children, let me say this, my nephew from my husband's side, he was brought up in UAE, and he came to study here. Now, mashallah, he's a podiatrist. So let's say this is early years of my marriage, 16 years ago. The school teacher here in Ohio, we were living in Ohio, and he was living with us. She asked, what are your topmost fears? And the kid wrote that my parents would be upset with me. And then he wrote killing someone.
Oh, wow.
That was just 16 years ago. Now you ask what's most what are you most fearful of? Then they have many other say depression or etc etc etc. Now the kids they are more learned about saying. So your thing was fear-based parenting. I need to
Yeah.
talk about that.
And I remember somebody, my cousin who moved here from Pakistan, telling me that, now she's raising her kids here, and she was saying that, these kids aren't even scared of us. And just automatically, because I grew up here, I was like, if you want your kids to be scared of you, they're never going to tell you the truth. They're going to go behind your back. They're going to lie to you. Because they don't want to disappoint you. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they're still going to do what those things are. They're just going to find a way around it.
Yeah,
You can't stop them.
Yeah, I learned this the hard way, though. We were not brought up with a mindset that being direct is being respectful. And then there's another thing, Shanila. English is very it's not a soft language. Urdu is a more respectful language. Arabic is even better, right? So in Urdu you have many pronouns like aap, and then tu, tum, tarak karke jo baat karte hain. Lekin the aap in itself softens the request. But in English it's just you. So the parent is you and the child is you. And when the child is being direct, if their tone is slightly not according to our liking level, it sounds as it's disrespectful, although it's not. They're just being genuinely honest. And I had to adjust my emotional tune and come to their wavelength.
Yeah. And even just in being fearful, we want our kids to be fearful, because then at least they'll do whatever we tell us to. It's so convenient, because then it's like, do this, and you say it in a stern way, and they get scared and they just do it.
Just today I wrote something. I was writing for my Urdu posts, and I wrote something, Allahu Akbar, and I said, we were raised, and this is what we were raised with. Pehli awaaz mein jawab diya karo. Pehli baar mein sun liya karo. First, the moment I say it, you're supposed to hear. And we grew up with this. And our teachers made us do it, and our parents made us do it, and all the elders, dur ka mama chacha bhi, they would come to our house for family settings. Utho, chalo, and it was disrespectful, and we knew it was disrespectful, but we were never able to say that. And this idea where we women today suffer, drop everything just to answer to the call. Fear-based and very what am I supposed to say to this? Emotionally controlling. And we did not grow up with this idea like, no, you can say like, I am in the middle of something, I want to do this, finish this, and then continue doing whatever you have. I'm going to reply to your response, or I'm going to respond to your request, but just wait a minute or two. Not brought up like that. And our children are like, they're like, when I'll finish, I will see.
Yeah. And I think that triggers us, because it's like, we could never do that.
Yes.
And so a lot of times when we read about Islamic parenting and like how to be calm, how to not get emotional and mad and upset, we can't do that, because that's one of the reasons, because we didn't grow up like that.
Yeah, we didn't.
And that's so hard to come to terms with, right?
How we romanticize it. Just now, I'm thinking, Prophet ﷺ went to Anas radiallahu anhu. Remember the Anas radiallahu anhu's most famous hadith. He was 10 years old or something. Prophet ﷺ told him to go do something. He forgot. He started playing in the street with the kids. Prophet ﷺ came to him and said, Anas, did you forget something? Not in a million years, but I imagine that somebody would come to me and ask me, oh, Ilham, did you forget something? And then I'll go and do it. No. How dare you? And I did this with my kids too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And then in the hadith, he goes on to say that I lived with him for so long, and never once was he like, imagine that. Yeah, like that's unimaginable. And I feel like in Desi parenting, it's you're forced to respect. It's almost like a dictatorship, because you're forced to respect. I don't have to respect you, but you're gonna respect me, and you will, and I'll make you. And the thing is, you can't make anyone respect somebody else.
No. And that is so
you can make them scared of you.
Exactly. That's so far from the Islamic parenting. So this is one distinct feature that we both put forward, that Desi parenting, Islamic parenting. Fear-based, gave an example from Sunnah. If you want to be an Islamic practicing parent, then okay.
Yeah. And another one that's not specifically Desi parenting, but it could be all cultures, is behavioral focused, just focused on the outward behavior. It doesn't matter what's inside. And the thing is that with Islam, the Islamic approach to anything is always going to the root cause.
Yeah.
You know, so many laws or rules are based on the root cause. It's prevention.
Yeah.
And we, especially in Desi parenting, we are like, stop crying. Don't show any negative emotions. You have to be happy. You know, why are you sad?
देखो वो अंकल क्या कहेंगे, वो आंटी क्या कहेंगी, वो
Yeah.
दादू क्या
But
कहेंगे,
people think.
yeah, what are the
So
what are
we
the
basically raise our kids to be people pleasers.
And then don't embarrass me in front of my relatives. Then
So again, it's what people think.
Yeah.
What other people think, their judgments. So you're worried more about that than what's really going on with the child in front of you. What they need from us that no one else can give. That gets overlooked because we're worried about what people are going to think, our own judgments, our own insecurities.
Yeah.
And
this ties down very much to the first factor. So I'll tell you why we do that, or why this is a common practice, that don't embarrass me in front of others, because we're fearful that the others are going to judge us, of course. But like we said, again, it's a fear of being, it's a fear of not going along with the norm, not going
living
along
up to their expectations.
Yes, fear of and expectations and all of that, and I'm not good enough. It you know, is how hierarchy keeps. It's like a domino effect. If you and I now, we process all of this and we think about it, it's just like a domino effect. Like fear of self, fear of failure, fear of this, fear of that, and then we take all our fears and we instill it in a commanding fear, where we are commanding respect and we are commanding a plasticity of emotions, like everything should be wrapped neatly.
Yeah, and one thing that comes across for me is that, you know, Allah tells the Prophet that if you weren't kind, if you were not patient, if you were harsh, then they would not follow you.
Yeah.
But so even our prophets, they had to win our hearts, and he did, right? He won the hearts of everyone around him.
Yeah.
He could have just said, and even Allah himself could have just said, I'm your Lord, I created you, you better worship me, or else.
Oh my gosh, you know,
he could have, right?
You were there with me when I was writing all of this in the morning. I wrote this.
Really?
Wrote this example, Allahu Akbar. This example that you gave, that even Allah, he could have just said, I said it, do it, and we would be doing it, right?
Yeah. But he didn't. No. You know, he showed us the mercy all through his names and attributes, all the reasons why we fall in love with him, why we want to. Yeah. And that's the thing, that's the difference is in Desi parenting, because of our own insecurities of, you know, we think that our kids are a reflection of us. If they're good, then people will think good of us. My worth as a mom is as good as my kid's accomplishments, like he's a trophy. Yeah. And when we get into that trap, then we forget about all this kindness stuff, and we forget about the Islamic approach. Yeah. Because we're just so driven by all these fears that we have of our kids.
Absolutely. That's true.
And I think that whole about obeying parents, and that there's something in Islam too, but one thing that comes up for me is that, okay, that child, he's not even accountable. He's not accountable. So when he's having entitlement, yelling and calling us names, and because he can't regulate his emotions, and he's yelling at us, that child is not even held accountable. There's a reason for that, because they can't regulate their emotions.
They can, yes.
But we can, but we're accountable.
Yeah, we are.
We're accountable, and we kind of put that shift that blame on that child. It's because of you.
Yeah. And you know what? What's coming to my mind right at this moment is like a child, let's say 3, 4, 5, a 5-year-old child is having a meltdown moment, and they hit their parent, right? Because and then they hit their parent, and the child hit the parent, and you know what the parent said? Allah bahut gunah dega. Maa baap mara hai na, bahut gunah dega. Yeah. That is the moment where we put shame into the child, shame and fear mixture. How is the child going to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now mad at us. Yeah. So,
and also, how about when the child is 6 or 7 or even younger, and they're praying, but they're moving around,
Yeah, yeah.
or they didn't come to pray, and we're like, will Allah love this? Will Allah like this? Would He like this? And you're just like, okay, Allah would not like this. Allah would be mad at you.
Yeah.
Really? I don't think Allah would actually, because He doesn't even hold him accountable. But how about us who miss our prayers, who delay our prayers, who do all these things, but we don't, do we ask ourselves that?
And what about us who actually pray, and then right before praying and right after praying, we are so miserable in our attitudes towards ourselves and our children and our family. Like our children are literally like holding our breaths when they are around us. Allah is not going to ask us about that.
Yeah. And I think there's so many things that, and one of the major things is, especially when we get older and we have kids and when we're dealing with our parents or our in-laws, is that in our culture, boundaries are known as disrespect. So you can't have boundaries because they're disrespectful. You can't say, you know what, I just had a baby. I don't want anybody to come to the hospital because,
oh my God.
So that
Your
would be
baby
like
story
a big, yeah.
was something unheard of. When you were telling that on our Hearts, Minds, and Families, I was like she said that? Did that happen?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that that's the thing, is that because we don't have boundaries in the beginning, it does feel uncomfortable. I remember when, and also like I'm the oldest of 4 and I have younger brothers. So when you're the oldest sibling, you have a lot of power. Culturally, if you're the oldest sibling, you can do the same thing that your parents can to your younger siblings.
Yes,
you can talk down to them, you can say whatever, and there are no boundaries, and they have to just listen to you. And so I automatically started to do that. And one of my younger brothers, he said something back to me. And I like cried, and I was just like, that just broke my heart. That's so disrespectful. I changed his diaper. And he said that to me, and I had to sit with that for a while, and I realized that, you know what, just because I'm older than him, it doesn't mean I have to tell him everything. It doesn't mean I can say whatever. I mean, he's a person too, and he has a heart, and he has a mind, and I'm not the authority.
Right.
And I can't tell him what to do.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that it was really uncomfortable. That boundary was really uncomfortable.
Boundaries are uncomfortable. That's it's a whole new ball game for us. We didn't even know what they think. We knew boundaries in countries. We knew Pakistan, India boundary.
Yeah, that's
emotional boundaries.
But eventually I got over it. Because then I realized my relationship and my love for him is greater than what happened. So as we grow and we mature, then we realize that, it's okay. Maybe he said it because whatever he was feeling, maybe he's right. It's okay. And then you learn to respect that other person more. So I started to really speak more respectfully or ask him things instead of just assume and just be like, oh, we're going to do this. I would say, hey, do you want to do this?
Yes.
And then our relationship became better.
Yeah.
Instead of like,
Alhamdulillah, because now I once I started practicing it, I ask them, like, if I want them to do something for me, I ask them, like, if you're free, if it's okay for you, if you don't mind, can you do this for me? And they would say yes, or they would say no. And if they would say no, then it's a no. Although sometimes I do flip. Like, I'll give you a very funny example. I woke up and usually my youngest, she makes breakfast. And that day I asked her specifically to make breakfast. She was in a mood. And she said, Mama, today you asked the middle one to make breakfast for you. I'm not going to make breakfast for you. Okay. At first I thought okay, but I was not okay with it.
Yeah.
At lunchtime, I'm like, why didn't you make breakfast for me?
Yeah.
And then after I said that, then I started laughing at myself. I'm like, and then the next day I asked her again, Rumaisa, will you make breakfast for me? And Rumaisa says, like, Mama, if I say no, I know you're going to be mad at me. So even if I don't feel like, I'm going to make it for you. I said, no, promise, I won't be mad. Now I've learned my lesson. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. But I think sometimes it's almost that we feel entitled. Because I gave birth to you, because I did this, then you have to do these things. That's what it's almost like you owe me your life.
Yeah.
And how about Allah created us, and He could say that, you know what, I created you, I gave you everything that you have, you better do X, Y, Z. And He doesn't. Yeah. There's no compulsion in religion. You know, it's our choice. Absolutely. But we feel so entitled with our kids, like, we did all this for you. And it makes them feel like, oh my gosh, like I owe my parents something. And really, our effort is not because we want that outcome. Our effort is in itself something that we'll be rewarded for. It's our effort. You know, our kids didn't ask to be born. We made dua for them. We wanted them, right?
There's a very good. I'll just tell you how the story has flipped. So my mom is a single parent, right? Alhamdulillah for her. And when she was younger, and we were very young, and we had all the responsibility, that she would get frustrated, and she would tell us like how miserable we would have been if we would have not been where we were with her, safe, away from, you know, everything else. And she would just keep repeating that. In my head, I used to think, I didn't ask you to do anything for me. Why are you yelling at me? Just, okay, fine. You know what? It's better to be there, because I don't know how that is going to look, but this right now is not looking good. See? Yeah. I used to think like that. And you know, now what kids say, that was just a thought process. Never said that, never worked on it, never, you know, even thought of saying that out, because of course disrespect. And it was an emotion, it came and it passed. But now children, they say it on your face, and the parents are so hurt. They say, listen, you gave birth to me, and it is your responsibility to feed me, take care of me, give me the kind of lifestyle that I ask you, because why else did you bring me on earth? And you know how different this is from how we grew up. And there's a disrespectfful sound in that. Like you said, first it was as if the parents were like, what word did you use? Entitled. First the parents felt entitled. Now the children feel entitled. Yeah. So it's such a sticky situation. How do you balance it? How do you balance it? And a lot of Desi parents have that problem, actually. Yeah. And actually, if you think about it, Islamically, we just are supposed to be grateful, right? And you can't make somebody be grateful. No. We are grateful for the loud noise in our house. We're grateful for the messiness, because you know what? All of that is temporary. Absolutely. And and also another thing is that being present. In our deen, we're supposed to be present, and that's how you know, a lot of times I'll say things and we'll bring in the sunnah and say, well, that was the prophet. Of course he's going to be like that, you know? But there's so many people who can still be like that now, and they are, and they're non-Muslim. Yes. Why? Because they're present. They're mindful. They're working on themselves. They're doing the inner work. Absolutely. And then I see that they can have that. They have that calm presence. Yes. Because they worked on themselves, and we don't have that calm presence. So instead of just saying, well, that was a prophet, that's a really convenient excuse, but we can do that because there's nothing that we were told that we can do that we can't, right? Yes. So he was present, and he was able to respond and not react. And sometimes I think when our kids do something, then shaitan and probably our ego and so many other things says, are you going to let them get away with that? You know, you have to correct them right now, or they're going to be like that forever. And sometimes when we look at doom is going to happen. We have no idea of how much space and time will heal stuff. Now. And sometimes our kids say something and we think, oh, we have to correct them right away, right now. But you know, if you look at read the seerah and you look at the life of the Prophet, and he did not correct people right away sometimes. He had wisdom. Some people, he asked a question, you know, a question with a question. Some people, he just let be. Sometimes he would address it later. Sometimes he would address it right then. So with each person and the circumstance, it would be addressed a different way. And that's okay. Yes, absolutely. And there are so many different ways to teach a lesson, and we don't have to like right away tell them like, okay, here, you have to do this, or you can't, that was wrong, that was mean, you know, just cut them off, because that's kind of like letting, especially with our kids, is that's telling them whatever emotion you're feeling, stop it right then and there, because it's not okay. Yeah, because we grew up with this idea, stop it. Like we did not grow up with the idea of stopping or pausing to think or reflect. We grew up with stop and pause to attend to me, attend to the elder,
Yeah.
right? So that is in our that is in our response system. That's in our response system, and that's why we are so impatient. I used to ask myself this, and what is going to happen if they don't respond immediately? What is going to happen? And I realized nothing.
Yeah. Something that somebody once I heard is that children need a place to fall apart.
Yes.
Let them fall apart at home. So let them just, we're like that in our home. We can just fall apart, say whatever, do whatever, and we feel safe.
Yes.
But do our kids have that same luxury to do that? And do they feel safe? Or do they have to be always thinking like, oh, what are people going to think? What is my mom going to think? What is my dad going to think? I have to act a certain way. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because we have these, and then we bring Allah into it and the fear, and we use our deen to get them to do certain things.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's one of the reasons why we're losing them. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It was on. Sorry.
Okay. So can you talk more on that about just because of this distinction, like we really have to work on ourselves in this distinction because, or else we're going to be losing our youth as we are right now.
We are definitely. I mean, you and I, day in and day out, we talk with women parents who, or even you talk with actually couples too, where they're addressing everything as if everything is a child's issue. They're not even seeing that the child is basically responding to them, and it is not the child's issue; it's their issue. And I've seen like 80% of my parents, they don't want to listen further. Like they don't want to listen. I'll just give you a very common scenario. Now, although this person is an adult and she's married and she has a kid, but she has certain mental issues, and her mother has brought her up in a way where she keeps her wings around her. Nobody is supposed to say anything to her misbehavior. Nobody is supposed to say anything to her. Whatever she does, and the child grew up with this idea that, oh, everybody needs to respect and respond to my commands, and that's it. That's how the life is going to be. And although I know it's not relevant to what you were saying, but the thing is, what I'm trying to say here is the parents are the creators of issues. It never starts from the child, unless the child is born with a special need, or unless the child has a special mental condition that, of course, again, we are not aware of, and then we need to learn. I mean, I have my own sister has her son, my nephew. He has a genetic disorder, and he's 8 years old this year, and we're still learning how to respond to him, how to respond to his behaviors, because initially his behavior looks like a misbehavior, but it's not a misbehavior. Generally, it's genuinely a brain issue, a brain thing. Cannot comprehend. Yeah.
I think it goes back to knowing how to meet our needs and our kids' needs.
Yes.
So, and recognizing when we react a certain way, where we're like, okay, yeah, I was yelled at, I was hit, I was done all that. I know we shouldn't, but then we end up doing the same thing, knowing how to break that pattern and knowing what we need to fill our cup, what we need to recognize about us, about how we grew up. And once we can recognize that, a lot of times that helps us create space. So then we won't react all of a sudden. One thing that I want to end with, and I'm sure there's just so many things that we can talk about, and is that a quote that I read somewhere. And this is what it says. It said, we can be grateful for the sacrifices our parents made. We can understand that their own trauma caused them to raise us a certain way, but we can also acknowledge the pain they caused us. Having compassion for them doesn't erase the impact. Healing is grieving the childhood we wish they could have given us. And in that, we can do something different. We can look, I mean, if we just apply regular old hadith that we know, things that we know about Islam, and we just apply that in our parenting with our kids,
Yes.
we'll see a huge difference in our relationship with them, that it's not fear-based, that they can come to us. Because in this day and age where there's so many negativity in the environment, we want them to come to us. We want to be the number one person that they come to.
And yes, and through the through this medium of Brave Muslim Parents, one of the things that you always say, even with husbands and families, every time we talk to you, is that, listen, make your children come to you. Like, not make, as in
Yes.
provide them that
Yes.
ease that they will come to you, which is
Yeah.
extremely important. And I wish that we are able to do that, because and whatever the whole thing that you said, where you know, we can realize that the trauma was caused, and it does not take away from the pain, but, and in the beginning also you said that they did what they knew best to do.
Yeah.
And
you know, in our reparenting, or in our raising our kids, we can heal from that. We get
yes.
past that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And how beautiful is the sunnah of forgiveness, the forgiveness of people and the forgiveness or of ourselves. And when you realize that, oh my God, what was I doing? Instead of going into despair, you forgive and you move forward, and you gain tools to help support your mental health, your emotional health, to get better at that. But I wanted to say something. Last night I saw the movie Encanto.
Yeah.
It is, I think somebody actually read that, what you just read, and it's the exact storyline.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say thank you so much, Jazakallah Khair, for coming on. We're talking about this. Also, the coaching that you do, the coaching that I do. I think this is a really strong and needed area where this generational pattern of raising kids that, you know, come to us automatically, a lot of times we need somebody to guide us through it. We need a coach to help us get the results we want faster. We don't, because if sometimes when we do things on our own, not for everyone, but it takes time. For me, it could take 10 years. Now, do I have 10 years? By that time, my kid's going to be like 20, right?
Yes.
So working with somebody, a parent mentor, someone who we trust, we resonate with, it's really important, and it's a gift. And that's why you do the things, you do the work that you do, and I do the work that I do, because I want parents to get the results faster and be able to enjoy their child.
Absolutely. Enjoy it.
So
That's so good, mashallah. Yes.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.